Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to Kremble!
I'm Joshua Kemble, and welcome to Joshua Kemble's Livestream. I've been a freelance illustrator and graphic designer for over 20 years. I was an art director for 9 years. And when I'm not art directing and working on illustrations and graphic designs, I'm working on comic books and graphic novels, and that's usually what I do during my streams. And while conversations can go all over the place on this stream, from spicy and entertaining to goofy and silly, one thing stays consistent throughout every stream. I'll always be working on art. So pull up a chair, get your art supplies out, and get ready for an entertaining show that'll keep you company while you work on your own personal art projects. This is Joshua Kemble's Art Stream. All right, welcome. Episode 307. We're still working on page 79 of Not Death But Love, the strange supernatural story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning, the graphic novel that I'm doing for Turner Publishing. It's still in progress, and I'm really excited about it. We finished the crazy crowd scene. Let's take a look at it. So we finished that top panel, the crazy crowd scene. It's kind of insane. Took forever. And now we're gonna do flats for the rest of the page. So we're doing flat coloring, hanging out, doing art. It's a Friday afternoon, and we're gonna see how far we can get with it. So yeah, so that's pretty much what's on the dock today. We're just gonna hang out and do that, and see where things go. Before that, my son needs a refill of his water, so I'm gonna get him his water real quick. So we're gonna we'll play a real quick trailer a little early, just so that I can go get him that. This is the Wordzoid trailer for both of my books by Jim Lujan, and then we'll get into the stream proper afterwards and get a lot of art done and stuff like that. So here we go.
Well, Peter, since I'm such a big music fan, I'm gonna have to go with Karen Carpenter. Oh, Stu, I'm sorry. That's the incorrect answer. Trish, what you got for us?
I'm gonna go with Kim Gordon.
All right, let's check that answer. Kim Gordon. Do we have a Kim Gordon?
Yes, and that means you're our new Wordzoid champion, Trish. Dale, tell Trish what she's won. Trish, you've won a copy of 2 stories, a memoir of faith and mental illness. Handwritten, hand-drawn, and handed to you by artist and writer Joshua Kemble. But wait, that's not all. You've also won a copy of Jacob's Apartment, the story of a doomed romance. What happens when you take Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and put it in a blender with Ghost World? You get Jacob's Apartment, written and illustrated by Joshua Kemble. Trish, thank you for playing Wordzoid.
All right, great job, Trish.
I was told I was gonna get a lifetime supply of paper towels.
I am, Ben. So what we're doing is we're gonna work on this, and then I thought we might talk, or I might talk about conspiracies. It was interesting. There was an interesting conversation on Christopher Runciman's stream today. Regarding conspiracies and belief, and I thought it was an interesting conversation, and I thought I might dive into that topic a little bit. Yeah, and so we'll see where things go. But while I'm talking, we're just gonna hang out and do art, and we'll see where we end up. So yeah, Christopher Runciman was having a stream where he was talking about kind of being pretty tolerant of people's beliefs, like whatever they are, and like on it, and kind of an open mind to like conspiracies was kind of his take. And I get that, and I kind of appreciate that. And what's weird is I used to really enjoy like reading people's conspiracy theories quite a bit. I used to actually think it was really entertaining to kind of read through these kind of weird sort of potential possibilities. It used to be kind of fun. But I have like a different take on I think I have a specific take on conspiracies that I think is maybe a little different, might be a little mainstream, I'm not sure. But I want to dig into it. So first off, I want to say I am a firm believer that there are probably actual conspiracies, for sure. We have a long history of that kind of stuff in our nation, and there's definitely times where people are conspiring to do bad things, for sure. But one of my main issues with conspiracy theories is when they start endangering people. And so like a good example of this would be like someone could like harmlessly believe that there's like lizard people, and maybe they just have some wild kind of fringe beliefs. But when those beliefs start becoming actions that harm other people, that's where I kind of have a problem. And I think that's where I kind of draw a line personally with belief in general. I think people should kind of be free to believe whatever they want to believe, but I think there's a dangerous thing that happens when, this is my own take, right? But I think there's a dangerous, like as fun as and wild as conspiracy theories can be, I think there's a danger when we start allowing truth to get stretched, or allowing our minds to kind of be open to mistruth. And I think it's like this weird kind of very slow process that can actually erode a society, strangely enough. So I want to kind of get into explaining that, and we'll see. It's a pretty dead stream today, so who knows if anybody's listening. I'm sure a few people will watch after the fact. But I wanted to kind of get into that and kind of see, what's, just kind of talk about, I guess, my own opinion of it while we're drawing this comic from Victorian England. So a good example would be like, I tend to think that, like I'm a big fan of like the freedom of religion in the country. I think that's a great thing. I think people should be able to kind of come to their own conclusions and believe what they're going to believe. I think that it gets dangerous if your religious belief is causing you to like attack other human beings or hurt other people. I think that that's where it kind of crosses the line. What I meant by like the lie thing is there's an interesting thing that happens when we start allowing our minds to not be skeptical. And this is why I'm like partially a skeptic. As much as I'm open to being proven wrong in pretty much everything in my life. I'm pretty open to being wrong. But I think there's a danger personally to when somebody like opens themselves up to wild speculation with the kind of take, and keep in mind this is my own opinion, with the kind of take of like, well, who knows, to each their own, and kind of allows for the possibility of all things being true. You can let some really dangerous ideas get a foothold. Now, I'm like a big fan of the idea of people being able to freely speak their minds and say whatever they want, have discussions about things, openly be able to talk about what they actually believe. These are important things because I think that open discourse can kind of reveal, the lack of logic in certain opinions or certain theories, and it can kind of lay bare the lack of backing for those things. However, I also believe there's some truth to the idea of human beings as individuals can do some pretty incredible or horrible things, but human beings as a crowd can be incredibly scary. Because we can kind of convince ourselves as a crowd of quite a lot of things that can justify a lot of really bad actions. So it's an interesting thing because I think that a conspiracy theory can start out as something tame, and when people really believe these things, it can grow into something a little more dangerous, weirdly enough. And it just depends on how far, when you get into one of these things, you allow it to take you. Um, Thomas was saying I'm breaking up and sounding really tinny. I think it's because I'm using that voice mod thing again. Let me fix that up real quick. Okay, so let me know if that's better. That should be better. I just need to not use voice mod. It's awful. Does that sound better, Thomas? Do I sound clearer? Hopefully, I sound clearer. So anyhow, my whole point was, I guess I'll just recap since that was like 10 minutes of sounding really tinny. And Thomas just gave me the thumbs up if I'm not sounding weird. Let me make sure this is coming through too. Now I want to make sure I'm checking my audio levels. Okay, my audio levels should be okay. So there's a thing. Okay, well, cool. Thomas said good to go. That's good. So yeah, there's a I was basically just kind of going over, like, Christopher Runciman was talking about his take on kind of live and let live with in regards to conspiracy theories, kind of who is the arbiter of truth, right? Like, how can you be like the truth authority, right? There's some weird stuff in this world. Maybe some of this stuff might be true, kind of a appearance. Thomas said it's starting again, the tinniness. Let me double check again just to make sure I'm good. I almost feel like maybe we can. What's bizarre is I can hear my own audio. It doesn't sound super bad, but maybe my connection's kind of bad. Interesting. Anyhow, I guess we just have to push through it. And here, I'll try to move my mic back a little bit. So hopefully maybe it's just blowing out a little bit. Maybe the gain is a little too high. I think I turned down the gain. Maybe that'll help. So anyhow, like, which is a reasonable take, and in general, I kind of agree with him on that. But the one thing I think that's a little scary about it is, I think there's an extent to which you can tolerate mistruth, and I think there's times where, like, misinformation can be really dangerous. good example would be like, like freedom of religion is really a wonderful thing. But there are also religions that people have gotten really invested in and believed in, the extent that they've put on a pair of Nikes thinking, Thomas said, hopefully it's just a bit rate issue that'll fix itself. I hope so. I'd hate it if there's just like mass delay or something on this. So like, I don't know if you guys remember the Hale Bopp thing. There was this cult that believed in the Hale Bopp comet. You guys remember this? This is from a long time ago. And they were set, like they had this idea that this comet would come take their souls. It was this comet that was real. It was a real comet, but I think we're under the assumption that this Hale Bopp comet, when it passed the Earth, if they were to off themselves, if they were to Minecraft themselves, as the comet was passing the Earth, they believed that their souls would be taken by the comet, something to that extent. And so this group like had this kind of wild belief about a comet. People just kind of were like, oh, these are interesting, kind of wild people. And then the belief was so convicted in this thing that a group of people put on Nikes, like the same Nikes, because I think for some reason they thought their shoes were really important for this transfer to a passing comet. And it led to a mass suicide, a mass Minecraft of everybody, including women and children, of people who all felt very good and convicted that this was the right call to make. And by all means, these people believed in a conspiracy, right? They believed in a conspiracy. So, as nerdy as it is, conspiracies have costs sometimes. And there's an area, it's an interesting thing about truth that I think we have to kind of address. Thomas, let me know if it's still a bad connection. I guess if it is, I'll just have to we'll have to power through it together. So there's this like fun area of conspiracies, where people will think, oh, this thing was a plan. This thing was like this famous event was all staged, or like the moon landing or whatever it is that people think is like, isn't what it appears to be. And as like a thought exercise, it can be healthy to kind of look at a conspiracy. But when conspiracy crosses over to full belief, yeah, Thomas was saying it's still tinny and occasionally breaking. Let me try this and see if let me test this out and see if we're kind of working, if this will work better. Hopefully this will work better. Maybe it's a matter of turning up the gain a little bit. I turned up the gain a little bit. Hopefully that'll help. Make sure. Yeah, Thomas was saying my video is jumpy as well. Okay, that's interesting. I'm not seeing that on my connection, but I guess I wouldn't know. If anyone else is watching live, let me know if I'm freezing or jumping. It might just be a really bad connection today. So am I still good? Am I jumping? That makes me a little nervous. Let's see. So hopefully this is intelligible. I don't know. It seems like I'm not getting a great connection. Yeah, Thomas said, I think you're correct. It looks like a bad connection. Let me do one quick thing and I'll see if I can re-log on. So I'll be right back. Don't leave the stream. I'll be right back. All right, we'll see if this works better. Hopefully it does. Hopefully that solves the issue there, Thomas. Let me know if you guys can hear me. So I guess my whole point was with conspiracies, the reason I was kind of bringing up, I don't know how much you guys were able to catch, but part of why I was bringing up like the Hale Bop people, right, and like death cults, like literal death cults in the past, is that there's like a fine line with belief and allowing yourself to believe a mild, tiny little lie. I think it's kind of interesting, but it's like, let's just hypothetically come up with a conspiracy one could believe in that seems harmless at first and then could actually lead to like real life consequences. A good example of this would be let's say you literally believe that the earth is flat. It kind of seems harmless on its face, right? Yeah, the earth is flat. So what? You think that's the case and it's all a conspiracy that the earth isn't flat. Well, what ends up happening is, let's say you and your belief like spread to an entire country to where the country no longer wants to send satellites into space because they think that the science that causes satellites to orbit is just complete junk and it's a lie from the government or something. So let's say they believe that, and then hypothetically from that, maybe they decide, to kind of run things without that, and then that destroys their ability to connect to the internet, that destroys their uh, space capabilities, it destroys their weapons capabilities in war. Because if a society like broadly adopted that idea, as crazy as that idea is, it could be really destructive. It could lead to miscalculations if somebody was trying to study the atmosphere, study the earth. It could lead to biological disasters, right? Because like half of how the weather patterns work on the earth has to do with the earth being round. It's like a really dangerous. Nice. Thomas said your video is better as well. That's good. It's just one of those things of like, I admit conspiracy theories can be entertaining and interesting, and I like to be tolerant of what other people believe. But the place that I like to draw the line on that is if it's a belief that could be very hurtful to people, that could cause some real problems. And to me, I don't feel super tolerant of that. I think that it can be really dangerous. I think it can lead people. A good example is like if you think about like the Salem witch trials back in the day. That was a conspiracy theory adopted by a broad amount of people, and it led to a lot of death. It's like, it probably started as something really mild where it's like, yeah, we believe witches are responsible for stuff that's bad that happens to us. And it's like, okay, that's That's your belief. I've got my belief. That's cool. That's cool. Well, we also think that our neighbor is a witch. Oh, okay. That's a wild conspiracy theory. Okay. Okay. Well, we also want to kill that neighbor or test them by semi drowning them to see if they're a witch. Okay. That's where I kind of draw the line, right? But the problem is, it's not. I guess my point is, when you open the window to mistruth or dishonesty or allowing truth to get really slippery and easy to just make wild claims without proof, kind of with the attitude of like, well, who knows? Who knows what's right? Who knows what's wrong? I think it's dangerous. I think it's very dangerous. I think that as citizens, to avoid, it's kind of a weird thing, but it's like, I actually think skepticism is really important for the health of society. Now, I definitely think there are some theories that I don't think are like super harmful. Like a good one would be like Sasquatch or something like that. Like I don't see a lot of people getting harmed by somebody thinking that like Bigfoot exists. Like I could see that growing into something though. I've seen this happen in my own life where people I've known have accepted a few little mistruths and kind of justified it. And before you know it, they're accepting a lot of mistruths. And it can be like a slippery slope because your mind to kind of process and be okay with the fact that you accepted one lie, it makes you a lot more able and susceptible to accept the next lie and then the next lie. And before you know it, you're really open to being lied to. And being lied to can cause you to manipulate other people and or manipulate yourself. So I know it's weird and it sounds very hyperbolic, but I tend to take a very different approach, even though it may be less popular to say. It's like, to me, my tolerance level for somebody making what could be a really dangerous claim is pretty low. Like I again, I'll hear people out, I'll listen to their theories or whatever, but especially if the theory itself is intended to do harm. It's like my tolerance level just goes down a lot for those things. It's hard for me to be super open-minded and tolerant when it comes to theories that stem from or are perpetuated by very dangerous forces out there. So I don't believe in like regulating speech. I don't think these things shouldn't be things people can talk about. But I think when someone is approaching like a wild claim, I think the idea of kind of testing it logically with what is true, what is provably true. And I know truth is like a whole arbitrary thing. It's hard to prove anything's true, right? But there's this thing that's in basic ethics and philosophy classes where it tends to be, if you talk to a complete nihilist, and by a nihilist, it doesn't mean like nihilist like we use all the time, like nihilistic can mean like just somebody who's like dissatisfied or something like that. No. I mean like an actual like person who's like epistemic is nihilistic. Because if you start from like a nihilistic epistemic where we cannot even ascertain what is true or false, then like you end up being in a really dangerous spot. I mean, this is another reason behind the whole I think therefore I am thing, which is, one should be able to kind of like use their mind and kind of sort out falsity from truth. And we should be able to be in a world where claims require evidence. And I think we should be, especially if the claim is counter. I'm not saying we should be closed off to it, and I'm not saying like there aren't counterclaims that might be true. I'm just saying like thinking about the repercussions of those claims. In the same way, like this is one thing that really weirds me out, has always weirded me out about conspiracy folks. And again, there's harmless and harmful conspiracies. You know what I mean? And I think the line between the two, as I've seen recently, gets real blurry real fast. A good example is like the most recent thing with like the pizza thing, where like they had this conspiracy about a pizza store selling children or something. And at first it kind of started as this, weirdly enough, just kind of wacky, fringe, kind of wild thing, and didn't seem to have any real like, okay, well, how's this going to affect people, until somebody like literally believed it and went to a pizza shop with like a weapon to like go stop this conspiracy. This is a person who sincerely believed it and took action, because I think if somebody sincerely believes that's true, you are going to take action, and dangerous action that could land you in jail, that could harm another human being. And it's like, that's where it's hard for me to say, oh, well, everybody's truth is whatever their truth is, and we need to like be kind of tolerant of those things. What's up, Ben? I kind of want some cups right now. Okay, I can get you some in a second. So yeah, anyhow, it's a weird topic, because on one hand I really like being tolerant of other people, but I think sometimes toleration can be misconstrued as approval or agreement. And so like it's weird, because I'll hear anyone out, anyone's viewpoint, but I'm not gonna like tacitly endorse nonsense. Like, because weirdly enough, like tacitly endorsing nonsense, it can lead to really bad things. It's not just like it's sad, because it's like, it would be fun if we could just hypothesize about wild things, and I think we should be able to hypothesize about wild things. But I think when we're making truth claims, I think we need to be really careful in our approach, and think about like why that would be, and the danger if it's wrong and being perpetuated. So that's a weird thing. And I'm not trying to be critical of like Chris. I think Christopher was dead on, and it's kind of awesome and noble and cool. But I'm just kind of explaining why, for me, I have trouble being like super rosy and friendly with ideas that I actually think are harmful. Like, I'll get in a discussion, I'll be civil, I'm fine with that, but it's like I don't kind of like the whole, well, maybe you're right, maybe I'm right kind of attitude, because to me there's a real importance of truth. Imagine if you were an engineer and you're designing an airplane, and you just agree to disagree about lift, and your job is to like safely design like an aircraft. Now, you could have like a theoretical discussion or disagreement that's backed in some science, and maybe everybody's just not agreeing with it, about maybe new ways of lift and that kind of thing. But the person who's making the wild claim in that case, I would hope, would have to like have some data to back them up. Would have to do some and I mean real research, you know, to kind of prove that like there's other ways to make a lift happen or something like that. Because I think imagine what the like how dangerous that would be if like you get on a plane and the designer of that plane just threw out the physics book and was like, I'm going to make a plane however I want to make it. And it brings to mind like the submarine, that recently like imploded, where they took a lot of shortcuts and they were kind of designing this thing, and kind of going, well, I mean, we can break the science a little bit, and that can be really dangerous when it comes to application. And so it's kind of a weird thing where I do like living my life of like, let people believe whatever they believe, let people practice whatever they practice, as long as it's not harming others. But I want to be really clear, that's where I draw the line, is when it's harming other people. That's where it gets very important for me to consider truth. And I also think truth is an important thing. And I have to get snack for my son, so I'll be right back. We're gonna play the trailer for Jacob's Apartment, and then we will continue this conversation. But we've finished the flats for one page. We might add a little bit of lighting on that too, maybe after the fact. But here's Jacob's Apartment trailer. Speak clearly, it seems that only in dreams can we be these things we've seen and walk around breathing things. I don't know the part to play in this heart of mine. There's dissonant things, they split at the seams. So back to what I was saying, I think there's a thing about the fact of the matter of things. In order for us to be a society, we have to be able to agree that there's probably a fact of the matter to a lot of things, right? To be able to have like a conversation, to be able to make up our minds about what is true, what isn't. I think the idea of agreeing of a fact of on a fact of the matter is really important. Even though I'm like left leaning and stuff, one of the things I've always been a little critical of is the idea of the lack of absolute truth. I know that one can make a pretty compelling argument that truth is kind of in the eye of the beholder. And I think that can be a comforting thought, but I think it can be a really dangerous thought. Because again, like, there's just a lot of historical examples of like governments deciding that, how you're going to raise crops is really just kind of, you have your truth, I have my truth, and we're going to kind of raise crops however we want. And it's led to like world famines, it's like, it's important, I think, for society to be able to agree on facts of the matter. And I know there's always going to be contentious disagreement, but that's one of the reasons I really like, especially when it comes to the fact of the matter, like, ethical considerations, stuff like that. That's always like philosophical quandaries are usually very much like up for discussion, you know? And that's where I get very tolerant of other people's viewpoints. But when it comes to like just the sheer reality of where we're living, when we're in a scenario where, you know, well, you can think your reality, I can think mine, you do you, I do me. That can be really nice, but it can also be the equivalent of kind of putting your head in the sand while somebody's like perpetuating ideas that could literally like destroy the world, you know? Um, I mean, it so it sounds like really hyperbolic, but it's why I can't just personally, and I'm just talking about my own thing, you know, my own opinion. But it's like why I personally have a low tolerance for nonsense. Like I just have a low tolerance for it. Um I have a pretty high tolerance for people believing whatever they're going to believe, but if it starts becoming a belief that is just like flat untrue, a blatant mistruth, like somebody just completely inventing things or spreading conspiracy, I think it's important to speak up about it. I think it's important to like actually demand evidence to demand evidence beyond like a blog post, you know. I don't think this is a wild idea. This is like the scientific process. It's the process of logic. It's what we were all taught to do, you know. Nice. Gary said, "Hello, everyone," and Jim said, "I'm only here to monitor Gary," and Gary said, "I'm only here to monitor Jim." But I think like the idea, it's weird to me. The one thing I used to, even like as left as I've gotten, like very left leaning, right? But the one thing that conservatives used to always critique the left for, that I actually thought they were kind of right about, was this idea of absolute truth not being real, like that there isn't a gauge where we can monitor what is true and what is false. And like when you live in a world where like absolutes are meaningless, then morals become a lack of absolute, and science becomes a lack of absolutes. And when you have a lack of absolutes, then you have people designing cars that crash, you know, because they're not like they're following their truth as they like, you know, make a car, and they're following their truth when they design the city, and then the sidewalks are badly planned, so you know cars start plowing into people and buildings start collapsing like the instant, you know, because they're like, well, you have your truth about earthquake proofing and I have mine. You know, it's like there's kind of a danger in the lack of absolute truths. And conservatives back in the day used to talk about that. And that's like one of the few things that I used to agree with conservatives on, was like the idea of this whole moral relativism and relativism in general. Um, you know, of like, well, everybody's truth is their own is cool as long as it's not hurting other people. But man, you know, it can go from harmless to harmful real quick. And I think it's so bizarre to see that the script has kind of flipped on that in the last few years, where now I see a lot of people, and I'm not saying it's all people, but I see a lot of people on the right really like, you know, if their political candidate lies, instead of going, yeah, they lied, they're like, well, to you, it's a lie. And it's like, but I mean, there used to be a point in time where even if your guy, like, let's say you're playing partisan sports or something, if your person lies, you can go, yeah, they lied. Like, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay to say that. It's okay to acknowledge that. But like, it's so weird to see. To me, it's been bizarre to see, you know, um, this idea of like, well, I mean, that's your truth. And you're like, no, I mean, I'm talking about like I mean, we're talking about things that literally affect whether people live or die. It's not like a your truth versus my truth. It's like a if you're correct about this, then there should be like some vastly wild evidence to kind of back what you're saying. But if it's just like, oh well, this is my feeling, and I saw like a a weird fringe post about it, it's like I don't think people realize like how freaking like how dangerous it is to be all like, well, you do you, I'll do me, you know. It, and again, I think it's dangerous to shut it down too. I know that's weird, but I do think discourse is really important for that kind of thing. Because if you can't have discourse about it, it just kind of spreads in silence, you know. And I think it's better to have it out in the open. I think it's better to have people just say what they actually think, you know. I don't think a society that's like publicly shunning people all the time is really leading anywhere because again, those people just go further and further and further into their little dugouts, you know. Um, and you know, it's so easy to silo ourselves off nowadays. Let's see here. Chris said, "Where do I find some alternative facts?" But yeah, I just think it's super it's hard for me, and maybe this makes me just like an asshole or something, but it's like it's hard for me to just kind of like if I'm in a room and somebody's saying like an anti-Semitic uh conspiracy theory that's kind of like the bloodletting or blood libel, that kind of stuff. It's like I'm not going to be quiet about that and be like, "Oh yeah, well you've got your truth, I've got mine." I'm like, "No, that's like a really dangerous path you're going down. Like you shouldn't believe that nonsense." That gets real dangerous real quick. And it's weird to me because I feel like again, you know, each person's their own person. I'm just expressing my opinion right now, but this is why I have difficulty with the whole well you do you, I'll do me thing when it comes to truth. It's like no, like there is a fact of the matter, and I think if we discuss it, we might actually be able to come to a conclusion about the fact of the matter. Um yeah, Frank was saying, I shun you, you shun me, we all shun for fun. I think shunning is really dumb, but I think like we gotta actually have conversations where we're allowed to say when something's just total BS. You know what I mean? It kind of makes me think of like, let's say you're working for a business, right? And you have to report revenue, and you believe in just kind of your own truth. Like, are you going to trust your pocketbook that way? like, like, are you going to look at, you know, are we going to start getting to a point in our society where, you know, you hire somebody to do your taxes and they inaccurately report it, and you're like, well, that was their truth at the time. It's like, no, you would want that guy to actually redo it because it's there's a fact of the matter there. And the fact of the matter is dangerous if it's gotten wrong, right? For you, for your wallet. Oh my goodness. Anyhow, so I don't know, like maybe that's just me. That like it's funny to me that I don't know, it's weird to me that we're in a world where it's like that's like an outrageous thing to say, is the idea that like no, I think there is a fact of the matter. I think that especially when it comes to hard sciences, you need some hard data to kind of like drive your wild claims, you know? And a good example would be like just going back to like the Hale Bop example. You know, if you think a comet that's coming in a week is going to take you as you all, Roblox yourselves, that's actually something you could literally start dissecting and saying, how exactly is this going to happen? Exactly. Like how is your you could actually start having a real conversation with somebody who believes in that, and maybe in a sense, if you can get them to change their mind or start considering other things, you might actually save someone's life, right? It again, just the whole like, well, you do you, I'll do me thing, is just such a creepy thing. Frank said there's undeniable truth and there's subjective truths. Water is wet. That's an undeniable truth. Kool-Aid is healthy because it has water. Well, maybe not. Yeah. Well, that's not even a maybe. Kool-Aid isn't healthy. Like, no one's going to make the claim that Kool-Aid is healthy. It's so not healthy. But it's like, and imagine a world where like people are raising their kids and everybody who's raising their kid thinks Kool-Aid is like as healthy as milk. Like, I mean, are we in idiot? Like, that's a really good point, actually, Frank. It feels sometimes like we've moved to idiocracy where it's like Gatorade is great for plants because it has electrolytes. Well, why do plants need electrolytes? Because it's in Gatorade. It's like that kind of logic. And if you at all question beyond that, it's like you're this intolerant jerk, and how dare you not tolerate like somebody else's viewpoint. And I'm like, no, like there's actual, like, it's kind of okay to say, sorry, that is stupid. What you believe is stupid. That's okay to say. We need to get back, I think we need to get back the ability to call out nonsense. We need to get back that ability. I don't think we should cancel it, right? But I think we need to get back the ability to be like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard, and be able to back it up, and put the justification on the foot of the person making the wild claim. Like, I, I'm sorry if that makes me mean, you know, but that's where I'm at. Like, it's like, yeah. Uh, Chris K said people in power in large corporations tend to hire accountants that interpret truth. But even if you think about the accountants that are interpreting truth, man, they better be really good. They better be crossing their I's and dotting their T's, right? Because a lot of those large corporations, the one thing they always get caught for is tax evasion. It's like, how did they get Capone? Like Al Capone, right? Like one of the most brilliant mobsters, they got him on tax evasion. How did they get Luciano? Like tax evasion. Like, it's dangerous when you start creating your own truths. Even for a gangster, it's dangerous. Anyhow, Frank said the Heaven's Gate website is still up and running. The two people who stayed behind so they could spread the information, they still believe they are right. So here's my question. Are you going to be like, well, you do you, if, like, let's say your kid, joins Heaven's Gate? Like, how are you going to respond to that? Are you going to be like, well, I mean, we each, like, everybody's got their truths, and, I mean, knowing that they are literally joining a death cult, like, are you supposed to just stay silent during that? I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but it's like, I think that's a really dangerous road to go down. there's a real value to tolerance and to nuance and to hearing people out and to dialogue and to civility. But there's a line. There's a line where I think that's real dangerous. Frank said there was a news report that a woman thought Pop Tarts were healthy because it has fruit. Also, Jim said, like that time where Senator Hodges got caught with the twin turns. I don't know. I feel like maybe I'm old and just grumpy or something, but I just, um, I don't think we should be like jerks, just like running around like shaming people. But I do think there needs to be the ability for people to say, like, dude, the earth isn't flat. Like, what are you talking about? And call it out and actually acknowledge that, like, if people actually broadly accepted this thing, it would destroy our civilization. It would actually destroy our modern civilization if everybody started believing that. It's not a bad idea to start thinking about that. Like, if everybody adopted this position, what would our society look like? It, like that's a relevant thing to think about if you're gonna like be in a position to either propagate or actually address like nonsense. To me, I don't think anyone gets harmed from Bigfoot. Like, I don't think anyone gets harmed by that. I hope not. I hope no one could get harmed by that wonderful conspiracy theory. Or Nessie. I don't know if like anyone's gonna like die if like everybody believes in Nessie, you know. Um I don't know. There's levels to it, but I feel like I think it all starts with like accepting like a tiny little lie, a tiny little mistruth. Um because it ideologically makes you feel good, or you kind of feel like that's what it is, and you get the feels, and therefore it must be. I don't know. It's weird. I feel like we've pivoted. Maybe I'm crazy there, but I feel like we've pivoted in general, where that's just not a common thing anymore. Um, Yeah, Chris was saying, I think they've always been around, but bad ideas are usually easily spread, often algorithmically boosted. Yeah, and I think they're easy to believe. And then people dig in, like I've seen this happen where like somebody will adopt something wild, and at first they kind of think, "Oh, this is crazy. I know this is crazy." But then they get more dug in and they start investing time and resources and energy and thought and money into these things. And the more they're kind of dug in, it becomes like a sunk cost fallacy where they get so deep in, it's like a cult. I mean, it's like the same thing that happens with a cult where it's like, oh, just pay like a little bit for this uh you know personality test. And then people are like, well, it's like $20. I'll take this personality test thing. And then like you hear these nice things about yourself and you're like, oh man, I guess maybe there's some truth to this stuff. And then you take more and more courses and stuff like that. And then the next thing you know, you're like knee deep in a cult. Like, you know, and it's like, and then like your money's been put into it, so like you're less likely to be like, I might have made a mistake here. you know it's just so weird to me that like it's very hard for me to be like, well, that's okay. You do you, I'll do me. That's really hard for me to do. you know I don't know if that makes sense. Man, yeah, it's just a very strange era in time where we live. I think that I'm gonna go ahead and save where I'm at. We're about 3 panels in. Frank was saying even flat earthers don't believe the earth is flat, not entirely. I've heard flats say there's a dome over the earth and there's a barrier around the planet. That doesn't sound flat to me. Well, that's the thing too, but like they imagine if they were in charge of your flight plan. Like do you want someone who believes in a flat earth planning your flight from Florida to Australia? Or from New York to Australia. How about that? New York to Sydney. Who do you want working, taking care of your flight plan there? I'm just saying. It's, one's going to get your airplane there. One's going to get you to your destination. The other might get you killed. It's so bizarre to me. They're like, yeah, I don't know. When the consequences are pretty heavy, I think people ought to consider a little more, you know? Let's make up I'm going to make up a thing. Let's say somebody hypothetically thought that every crossing guard was secretly a witch. It might seem kind of harmless and silly, right? But like what happens when they're like taking their kids to school and there's a crossing guard? What like do you speak up then? Do you speak up if they start like attacking crossing guards like all across the country and go into like school board meetings and being like these crossing guard witches have taken our children? It's like there's a point where you kind of have to be like, no, that's nonsense. Like witches aren't real. Like we're not going back to the medieval era of like, you know, public executions by like just mobs and people like freaking out and inventing like bizarre, insane, like, no, we're not going back to that. And also, I like the fact that there's crossing guards at the school of my kid, right? Like that actually keeps them safe, right? I just invented that theory just off the top of my head. And it's like, it's pretty easy to see how it could become destructive. It could start as something like, oh, you hear at a party and you're like, well, you do you, you know? But it's also like really dangerous even when you first hear it to be like, I don't know, you do you. Because it's like, no, like you kind of should correct somebody who thinks that like a specific class of people are like, you know, um demonic or something, you know? I think it's just important to kind of address that before it kind of gets out of hand and festers and becomes like a big thing. And by address it, I don't mean shut it down and go, you aren't allowed to talk about that. I mean, like, call it out and discuss it and point out why it's the stupidest thing in the world you've ever heard. You know, that's what we should be doing. I don't want to be overly tolerant of just absurd nonsense. Like, I don't. I think it's dangerous. I think it's good to be tolerant with other people. I think it's good for people to have their own beliefs. But when it starts harming other people, that's where I think we need to like actually draw a line. You know? So what do we have here? Chris said flat earthers tried to organize a trip to the ice wall of Antarctica, but couldn't find a boat captain that didn't use GPS. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I think they'd have to use like Atmos PS or something. But it's, I guess I'm saying it's like there's so many times in history where something that seemed like a tiny little conspiracy theory, that like, we're just being silly. And then it becomes like just crowds doing stupid things, like based on just complete nonsense, you know? I have a suspicion. I don't know. It's weird. It's like living in the era we do. I think when I was younger, I always thought it was just bizarre and very primitive, like reading about like the Salem witch trials. And I was just like, how would that ever happen? Like, not where we're at as a society. Like, we would never do that. And now I totally see how we would do that because I've seen it. Like, people just accept and adopt like a stupid thing and then start hurting other human beings based on it. And it's like a wacky conspiracy theory that like they themselves knew was nonsense at first. And then they got so dug in, and like allowed themselves to like accept one thing and accept the next thing. And then they just get so far in that at some point, rather than just kind of admit like, I'm kind of wrong here and course correct. It's like they just keep doubling down. And I don't know. I don't know if I'm okay with, at this point, I don't know if I personally am okay with being like, well, you do you and me do me. Frank said, that's why I decided to look into TTRPGs for myself. I'm not an advocate for D&D specifically, but a game where you use your imagination seems fine to me. There's more than one game. Frank said, why did Chris remove his comment? Did the Flat Earthers friends tell him to watch it? Okay, so yeah, it's a bizarre thing. It's kind of interesting. We've been going for an hour. I'm going to put on a trailer. We've gotten through 4 panels. We have 5 panels left. Like I suspected, this page was the page that wouldn't die till I got through panel 1. Chris said accidentally deleted on my phone. Sure you did, Chris. We know it was big Atmos coming for you. Okay, so I'm going to put the trailer for one of my films on. And I'm also going to say, like, I'm sorry if what I'm saying right now offends you, but it's okay. That's actually okay. I think I'm comfortable with that. Like, if you think a conspiracy that harms other people and you firmly are dug into it, I have no problem offending you. If you believe a conspiracy that like harms other human beings, I have no issue with offending you. I think we need to be more comfortable with being like, yeah, that's not cool. It's just not cool. Now, if you're like, again, if you want to believe in Bigfoot and even maybe like wild moon conspiracies and flat earth, even maybe, as long as you're not going to be picking my flight plan or, affecting policy regarding like space exploration or whatever, cool, go for it. But if you start actually hindering people and hurting people or hurting our society, then that's where I'm like, I'm okay with offending you. Yeah. So, okay, we're going to play the trailer for 2 stories. And this book might offend you. Who knows? Check it out. So again, like, I don't mind discussions. I think it's funny when people who call themselves open-minded and they're like, well, you do you, everybody's got their own take, can't handle somebody just saying, well, that's nonsense, I don't believe it. Like, it's bizarre because, like, I think it's one of the reasons I really enjoyed watching Professor Dave or whatever, Professor Dave Explains, kind of take down a flat earther. Like, the guy kept going, well, what you're saying is offensive. Like, the flat earth guy kept saying, well, this is offensive. You're being so offensive. And it's like, no, you're literally offending every single person who's dedicated their lives to science by making such a bizarre claim. I've literally had people tell me that they sincerely believe that Democrats, by the way, I vote Democrat. I've had people tell me to my face and expect me to not get, like, somewhat defensive about it or maybe counter their claim that Democrats are secretly drinking the blood of children. Am I supposed to just not respond to that? Like, I don't understand. Like, what world do we live in where I'm supposed to be like, well, you do you and I'll do me? It's like, no, that's like super offensive, dude, and it's nonsense. And it should be called out. Because if you start voting with that stupid idea, you're going to hurt people, I know. Like, people like real people will be hurt by that idea. It's not a cool idea. No. Yeah, Frank was saying, yeah, a lot of this stuff was fun and mostly harmless, but now it's out of control. On the older stream, we joked about books are actually round, but I can see somebody believing it. That's the thing. It used to be a thing. It used to be a thing where people on the right, at least I remember, the people I grew up around who were on the right, used to be big on the idea of absolute truth, that there is a fact of the matter, and you can get down to the fact of the matter, and you can have discussions about the fact of the matter, but it's important for people to agree there is a fact to the matter. And, like, that used to bug me when I was in art theory. Like, when I take art theory classes, postmodernism is really interesting. It's a really cool exercise of the mind. But the kind of lack of absolute truth that's, become, like, was endorsed by postmodernism, even with me being a little liberal guy, it just seemed a little dangerous, you know? It seemed a little dangerous. And, like, there are definitely areas where truth is gray and it's not black and white, and it's really uncomfortable, and it does require a lot of back and forth and discussion and open-mindedness and stuff like that, especially in areas like art, right? Where it's like areas like art are tough, right? It's wiggly. We have trouble even defining what art is, it's very wiggly. But it's just the idea of, like, this world of tolerance, for somebody telling me they think that I drink the blood of kids. I'm like, okay, no, I'm not gonna. Oh, well, you have your view and I have mine. It's like, no, I'm not gonna believe that. I know that's nonsense. It's like, yeah, like, why would I sit back and be like, oh, that's cool, you do you. Like, no. It just that's where it's like, okay, no, we're not going there. I'm not cool with that. I'm not okay with that. In fact, I'm offended by that, and that's okay. That's okay to actually be offended. It's okay if you're offended by what I'm saying. Like, I don't mind that. That's actually healthy. If you really believe that, you should be offended. um Oh man, I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, I feel like there's this unspoken rule with artists online And again, I get it. I get why, like, to me, I totally understand why somebody just doesn't want to get into things that are contentious or whatever. They're just making art. That's fine. But I feel like I don't want to just sit around and like suppress like truth for the sake of like allowing, fiction to go around in nonfiction sections, you know, even as an artist, even as a person who really believes everybody should be able to live however they want to live, believe whatever they want to believe, as long as, they're tolerant and it's not hurting other people. I'm kind of with that philosophically. But just because I believe that doesn't mean people should just go around completely unchallenged, and be able to just make whatever wild assertions they want to make. No. No. You know? Oh, anyhow. So I'm a little fired up. So this is a bit of a spicy stream, okay, guys? That's okay. We can have spicy streams. I've been doing a lot of art chill streams lately, and I've been enjoying them. So if you don't enjoy this kind of stuff, you can check out the last like 4 streams I did where I just talked about art and goofed around and stuff. This is what's on my mind while I'm working, is just like I was thinking about it, because I was watching this stream where everybody's like kind of like, well, who knows what's real? Everybody can just get along. And I kind of agree with that, but no. Like, no, I kind of don't. I kind of think no, everybody can't just believe what they want. Like, everybody's free to believe what they want, but when it starts being harmful, um, or if you're saying things like wild claims that are insulting to a person, don't be surprised when that person fires back, right? Again, like, it's so bizarre. Does that make sense? It's like somebody will come on and be like, "Hey, let's just do another hypothetical. Let's say somebody came on my stream and they were like sincere, like this is not, not joking, and we're like, I think that anyone with the last name Kemble is like one of the most evil people on the planet, and I think we need to just get rid of all Kembles." And they go through this whole thing about like justifying why anyone with the name Kemble, and they're not joking, like they're sincere. And then let's imagine I actually argue with them about it. Like, I'm like, no, that's actually BS, dude. And I start getting into it. And then they go, whoa, why aren't you tolerant of just my viewpoint? Like, why aren't you being cool with everybody? Why isn't it okay for me to think this thing? And it's like, well, it's not okay because it's going to harm other people if you believe that. And it's also offensive. So, like, if you're saying something offensive, don't be surprised when people get offended. Like, holy crap, what are we living in? Like, this world where people can't say what they think and challenge like just utter nonsense. Like, it's so bizarre to me that's where we live. um you know yeah, Chris was saying, alas, the danger of the echo chamber. Yeah, Frank was saying, like, being told I hate people because I'm a Christian, I'm not supposed to get upset. Yeah, like 100%. I've definitely heard people say that. Like, I've heard left-leaning people say that. Like, it's weird for me. Like, I have a tough time, you know, because I'm a Christian and I'm on the left. And like, I even had a time where, I volunteered for like Cenk Uygur's campaign locally because he was running, and I thought it would be cool because he's progressive. And I was like, hey, that'd be cool if he got in my district or whatever. And it's like, I remember all the volunteers just like for like half an hour just trashing Christians. And I was like, at one point just kind of like, I'm a Christian, and they all looked at me like, what? Like I'm a unicorn or something. And I was like, no, I'm just like, I I agree with like 90% of the policies on the left, and but I also believe in Jesus. Like that's a sincere thing. And I remember everybody being like, like, again, it was kind of weird because it's like Frank was saying, where it's like, I think it's weird to like totally trash someone's religion and then not expect them to get offended. However, I also think it's weird if you're going to be like proselytize. Like if I'm proselytizing Christianity all the time, I should expect that people are going to challenge what I believe, like 100%, you know? Because it's a wild claim. It's oh man. Anyhow, it's just strange. It's strange to me. Am I crazy to think that's strange? Like, oh, it's so weird. And then the thing that's bizarre to me too, I'm gonna keep going. The thing that's strange to me too is I remember there being critiques of the left a long time ago where they would call like the left like woke and fragile, and there would be these like statements about the left as if they couldn't handle criticism. They're just like, oh, they're these super fragile. Meanwhile, if I like make a factual claim about a life-saving medicine that literally, it's just statistically like, or a specific disease that hit the human race and killed hundreds of thousands of people and has provably happened, suddenly all these people become complete SJWs about it. And now like it's these wackos on the right who are like, all, oh my gosh, how dare you say science or facts? Oh, I'm not going to support you. I'm leaving. I'm so offended. Good. You should be. Like, I thought that supposedly people on the right wanted open dialogue where people didn't have to be fragile and tender. I thought that was like a big thing. And yet like they're some of the most fragile people I've ever met. Where it's like, how dare you say that like there isn't a secret cult of blood-sucking Democrats? Like, come on. You don't like, you can't handle the slightest bit of pushback, and then the response is like, it's very fragile. The response is very fragile. It's like, well, you need to do the research. I'm leaving. I won't support you now, and you need to do more research. No, you need to do more research, you idiot. I'm gonna say that. I have the freedom to say that. If you can't handle me saying that, it's okay. That's not my issue. I'm not the fragile one there, right? And I think that's what I'm kind of getting at. We're gonna play a trailer. We're gonna play another trailer, guys. I'm getting worked up and I'm fired up, okay? Spicy stream, spicy Josh. Spicy Kremble. Chris was saying, in your area, you are a bit of a unicorn. Important thing, have dialogue with unicorns. Frank was saying, I want to clarify most of the outlandish stuff I'm saying about birds are fake. Drinking blood is true. That's me joking. But being accused of stuff I don't do, that's what I don't tolerate. Yeah. You shouldn't have to. Frank was saying, it's sad I have to clarify that. You shouldn't have to clarify that. You're okay. Yeah, no. Yeah, it's more just like, to me, the fact that like people want to say something highly absurd and insane and just have like full license to kind of be able to say it unchallenged. And that's my point. And I'm not talking about you, Frank, okay? Because Frank's a good dude. It's more just like, yeah, if you can't handle the challenge, then just, I don't know. Like that's bizarre to me. That's bizarre. I'm gonna play a trailer and then we'll get back to coloring these pages. I appreciate you guys. I hope I haven't offended any fragile folks out there. And I'm gonna play a trailer for let's see here. I'm gonna play a trailer for two. We played two stories. Let's play Wordzoid by Jim Luhan.
Well, Peter, since I'm such a big music fan, I'm gonna have to go with Karen Carpenter.
Oh, Stu, I'm sorry. That's the incorrect answer. Trish, what you got for us?
I'm gonna go with Kim Gordon.
All right, let's check that answer. Kim Gordon. Do we have a Kim Gordon? Yes, and that means you're our new Wordzoid champion, Trish. Dale, tell Trish what she's won. Trish, you've won a copy of Two Stories, a memoir of faith and mental illness. Handwritten, hand-drawn, and handed to you by artist and writer Joshua Kemble. But wait, that's not all. You've also won a copy of Jacob's Apartment, the story of a doomed romance. What happens when you take Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and put it in a blender with Ghost World? You get Jacob's Apartment, written and illustrated by Joshua Kemble. Trish, thank you for playing Wordzoid.
All right, great job, Trish.
I was told I was gonna get a lifetime supply of paper towels.
Frank said, I was called lazy recently on a stream where one person was calling the host woke and citing a source that I had to look up. I said, nah, I'm not going to. Even the host said, yeah, that didn't happen. And he said, I said that not because of you, Josh, but I was told I'm hateful because I joke about hating people by someone I considered a friend. There's more to it, but that's for my memoirs. Okay, I'm sorry to hear that, man. Yeah, and it's tough, I get it. It's tough out there because there's like weird crap that like I would literally think was a joke, and then like people literally believe some of this stuff. It's bizarre, to the point where like it it's like I it's interesting. Gary said, I have to admit, I check out the second someone says woke as some part of a critique. Yeah, I do too. It's kind of equivalent to like, I understand why like somebody on the right would tune out if you're just saying all people on the right are Nazis, like I get it. That's kind of a rude thing to make a claim about. But I also I think it's weird if I will acknowledge there are some people on the left that are like way too far out there and are probably very pretentious and difficult to deal with. I totally get that. So I kind of think I know what people mean when they're dropping the word woke as if it's like a negative. But yeah, I tune out a bit when I hear that, much like I'm sure somebody on the right would tune out if you say Nazi, right? It's like they're probably hearing that all the time. However, the right needs to acknowledge they have a contingent of actual Nazis. That's an important thing for them to acknowledge. And again, if that's offensive to you, I don't know what to say. That's a fact. That is a fact. A 100% black and white, true, absolute truth, fact of the matter. It's just true. So it's one thing to be like, yeah, I mean, you probably shouldn't go around calling everyone on the right Nazis. Yes, I agree. I think that's probably a problem. I think if people are doing that, that's a little hyperbolic and ridiculous. But at the same time, it's so offensive and naive to think that that's not a thing on the right, that there aren't people on the right. The people at Charlottesville were just cosplaying. Come on, can we just get back to a world where people like just actually have open discussions but are also more serious about like can goof around and have a sense of humor, but also just accept that like there's some times where like it is not cool to just be like meh, you do you, me do me. Like there are some disagreements where we gotta actually disagree, we gotta actually hash it out and talk about it because it's problematic. um oh man, it's so crazy. I think what's setting me off about this too is like it was like a couple days ago where I heard someone saying they actually made the claim that if the US hadn't entered, and this was someone on the left, mind you, they said if the US had just let things go in World War II, like everything would have been fine. Like everything would have been resolved. Like the US really didn't help at all. They didn't kind of help stop the Axis. They just, they kind of just muddled things up and ruined the whole thing. That was their take on it. I'm sorry, but there is no there's no serious historian who would think that. It's so bizarre. It's like it's the weirdest claim I've ever heard. One of the weirdest. And I remember when I kind of responded to it, they were like offended, like, well, I mean, that's my truth. And it's like, no, but it's history. You can't just invent your truth. It's the thing. Oh, it bugs me. It bugs me so much. It's like the worst cop out. It bugged me when my own team was doing it, and it bugs me when the other team's doing it. It's a stupid argument. Oh man. Frank's let's see here. Gary said, "Oh, for sure, I'm a different generation of liberal. There are all sorts of things I see the left do that make me roll my eyes or totally disagree with, but just slapping the woke label on everything. I agree, it's obnoxious. It's so annoying. And it is lazy. Oh my gosh. Let's see here. Frank was saying, "Oh no, there's bad people on all sides. There's not good Christians and not good Republicans. Woke gets overused too. I don't think Josh or Gary drink baby blood." Thank you. I'm glad to hear that, Frank. It's like, you know what it is though. That to me is the lazy part of it. It's lazy thinking in the sense of, wouldn't it be convenient if everyone who disagrees with you about a contentious issue, let's pick up a tough issue like abortion that people are really passionate about, and justifiably so, right? Because people who are like against abortion, like a lot of them like sincerely believe that it's like murdering children, that's, if you really believe that, that's like a really scary thing. Of course you're going to be heated and crazy about it, because that's like, I don't think anybody I know is a fan of killing children. So then there's like, but here's the thing. If you really believe that, then it's probably very comforting to think that anyone who disagrees with you is as simple as just thinking, yeah, killing children's awesome. Like, of course that would be comforting. Because it's not as nuanced as the actual issue. Because I think the problem is, the scary part is, when it comes to that issue or any other contentious issue, is generally it's not that simplistic. That's where it gets nuanced, and the nuance is a little scary. So like just labeling something as like, well, they're all murderers who like want to murder people. There's not a lot of people out there in this world who want to go around just killing people. So you got to start thinking a little deeper, like what's the steel man for what they're saying here, right? But I feel like we've just like put our brains in a freaking vat and just are allowing ourselves the excuse of like, well, let bygones be bygones, and everybody can just believe whatever crazy thing they want to believe, and it's not going to have any danger to society. And meanwhile, it does. It has like a lot of danger. because like people aren't thinking through issues. They aren't like steel manning other people. I don't know, it's just so obnoxious. It's getting old real fast. I've gotten really tired of it. Um, you know, I don't know if that makes sense. Like I'm tired of kind of being civil about things that are uncivilized. You know what I mean? Like if you want civility, then don't be uncivilized, right? Um and by that I mean like you know like like spreading wacky conspiracy theories, you know, and making the world like a cartoon that is just insane. Like it I'm not going to I'm not going to be okay with that. Like I've never been okay with that. I don't understand why there's an expectation that I'm just going to like be like, yeah, let's all be cool. No, let's not. Let's not. Um, you know, oh, it's just, I don't know. Yeah, I think that's where I'm kind of an old school liberal in that sense too, because there is a fact of the matter. I think there is a fact of the matter. I think it's possible for people to disagree without everybody being like a supervillain. Um, but it's just the bad faith of it that yeah, that's a good point. Gary was saying that reminds me to drink my baby blood. Yeah, I was running a little low on adrenochrome myself, so I think I'm gonna get a shake maybe later on. Um, yeah, I just don't. I don't get it. It's bizarre. You know, I'm going off on a tangent here, but I think it's a reasonable one. You know, it's been a couple streams since I've done a spicy stream. But, you know, to each their own. It bugs me so much. No, no, not when it comes to hard sciences. I'm sorry. That's not how it works. You know, it's just not how it works. Oh my gosh, not when it comes to my wallet, right? Like if you're giving me like a well to each their own like about finances, I don't know about that. I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. I'm not going to put my money on that, okay? And it's funny how easily people when it comes to their own health, you know, like people get really skeptical of like oh my gosh, like the medical society is so blah blah blah, but then like they get cancer and they get chemo. You know, why? Because like at the end of the day, like there's some science to it, and in general, when your life is on the line, you should probably trust science. Like you should. We all do it, you know. If you become like really obese or something like that, and you're like, oh, to each their own. Well, if it starts affecting your health, guess what? Like, there's a couple solutions for it, and generally, it's like eating right and like um exercise. Like that's what most doctors are going to tell you. You can think it's big doctors just all conspiring to like take on the thing, or you could just maybe accept the fact that like there's an actual solution to the thing that you know you have that like pretty much like 98% of doctors agree with. Maybe there's like one fringe wacko doctor who's like, yeah, exercise is not going to help you you know with weight at all. It never will. You know, like and maybe that's comforting for people to hear, but it's not healthy and it's not right for like people to just put their head in the sand and like pretend that there isn't science and there isn't truth to science. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going with this. I'm going to make the wild claim that if somebody has a crazy idea that could harm other human beings, um, it should not go unchallenged. That's my wild, spicy thing. At least for me, it's really hard. I have trouble um, hearing utter BS and not speaking. That's just it's my call it a fault or a flaw. I don't know. You know. Oh man. And I've talked about this. They like there's a group of people who want to pressure artists to like be like in a box where they aren't allowed to talk about anything they think. And a lot of these people doing this very thing are complaining about artists being pressured. It's very annoying. It's so bad. It's just like, oh, it makes me so mad. But I guess I get it. You know, it's kind of like, it probably feels really punk rock to be like, you know, the person on the fringes, you know? It's like, I'm sure there's a comfort to that where it's like, dude, I'm a rebel because I think, you know, people are lizard people. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure there's like some kind of like really cool, you're in the secret club, you're daring, you know, kind of thing to it. But it's just like, can we actually start stopping being like children about this nonsense? Can we like actually just, I don't know, just I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like it's getting so boring and old to like constantly have to be like, well, you do you, I'll do me, about just utter absurdity. Like, you know? Oh, okay. How are you guys doing? I hope you guys are doing okay. I know that my wife is picking up In-N-Out Burger. Okay. And speaking of hard truths and hard facts, you know, there's a claim that Mr. Corey Kerr made that In-N-Out Burger isn't that great. He said that. Okay. And I just want to say I'm a fan of hard science here. And In-N-Out unquestioningly is like probably the best hamburger chain in California. Just saying, that's hard science. You can debate it all you want. I'm just saying, we're getting In-N-Out Burger, and I'm pretty excited about it. That's going to be happening in a little bit of time. And, you know, I don't feel bad about saying that, okay? Chris was saying it gets unfortunate and politically dangerous when it becomes one's entire personality. Yes. Frank said, I don't think we have In-N-Out in my part of Texas. I think that's sad. I think that's because big Texas doesn't want you to have great hamburgers. Anyhow, sorry for getting so worked up. You know what? I'm not sorry for getting so worked up. It's my stream. I can get worked up. This is spicy Kremble, okay? But yeah, I was just worked up about that because I was like thinking about it. I'm like, why is that? Like, I wanted to dissect why it bothered me so much to be in a group of people who are just like, yeah, you know, everybody just do what they do and believe whatever they believe. I'm like, no, I'm not okay. I'm not okay with that. No, 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 that's not how it works. Like, you can say that, and that's cool, but don't hold me to that standard. No, if you talk nonsense, like absolute nonsense, and you lie, and you're lying so clearly, and just like whether you're intending to lie or not lie, if you're gonna go around making wild, false claims, you know, that have no backing, like, you know, that you read on a blog, like, no, I'm not going to be like Mr. Tolerant about that. Like, I don't understand why I have to be. It's like in this world where I've talked about this before, but I feel like there's these times where, as an adult, I have moments where I feel like there's people who are coming near me all the time. Maybe you guys have this too. I get this feeling that people are asking me to play pretend and be okay with that. they're like, well, just play pretend. And I'm like, well, are we playing pretend? Because I can totally play pretend. Let's play pretend. And they're like, no, I mean, for real, this is real, but you just need to play pretend with me. And I'm like, but I don't want to. Like, I play pretend when I write comics. I play pretend when I'm writing fiction, right? I play pretend when I imagine, but with policy or like facts of the matter, no, I'm not going to play pretend because I learned better. Like, you know what I mean? Thomas says, I fully agree with Corey. No evidence to back the in and out is as good as people think it is. I think there's a wide variety of evidence. Yeah, Thomas brought up a real conspiracy. There was the Tuskegee experiment that gave black men syphilis, and that's proven. Yeah, some conspiracies are real. But you know why I actually agree with that as a truth rather than a conspiracy? It was proven. Okay? That's the difference. It's like when somebody's making a veracious claim, like even that, you need some proof, you need some evidence, you need some actual evidence. And just because one thing's wild does not make every wild thing true. And even that experiment like kind of fell apart because there were a crap load of leaks because it's really hard to keep secrets like that. Oh my gosh, like a good example would be like if I just went around calling myself the reincarnation of Joan of Arc and somebody like challenged me, they're like, wait, you're not Joan of Arc. And I'm like, it's my truth, man. The Tuskegee experiment. Okay, yeah, but that doesn't prove you're Joan of Arc, right? Like, I'm just saying it's illogical. It's illogical to be like, well, I mean, clearly the Earth is flat because they lied about this. And it's like, no, like that's logically incoherent. Because there were conspiracies does not make all conspiracies valid. Okay. And aside from that, like, man, if they were making actions about a conspiracy that actually became policy, I would hope they have proof of it. Solid evidence. But I read on a blog with an eagle that's on it that, like, you know what I mean? That's not. I understand that, like, I am not like the perfect wealth of knowledge. Like, the older I've gotten, the more I realize I don't know about things. But that doesn't mean I'm not gonna like call out BS when I hear it, you know? And I don't think it's wrong for somebody to say that's factually untrue. Like, I think it would actually be really strange if we live in a society where somebody can just make a claim like, you know, the Earth that's been proven for, you know, almost like 1,000 years. People have understood this. The Earth is flat. It's like, okay, if you're gonna make that claim, you better expect to be challenged. And if you get challenged, don't be like all fragile about it. Like, oh my gosh, how dare you? How dare you, sir? It's like, no, you're making a really crazy claim. Like, it is crazy. Like, that is a nutty idea. Like, beyond the point where you'd even, like, it shouldn't even be up to me to prove that the Earth is round at this point. It should be up to you to kind of actually make some sense. Why am I so worked up about this? I think it's because I feel like we're in a really weird time where, people are going to be so fragile that they see like a Bud Light commercial and flip out, because they're like, oh, there's someone I don't like in this commercial. It's pushing propaganda. And you're like, okay. So they want to cancel the entire company, because they're like, oh, how dare they not market my Bud Light to me? And then at the same time, they want to go around like being able to say things like, about like conspiratorial claims. And if you dare to say that's kind of ridiculous, they're like, I'm leaving. This is not okay. And it's like, oh, you can't both be mad about fragile people who can't handle criticism or handle pushback or handle dialogue or have open conversation, and at the same time be the exact thing you're complaining about. It's it makes me so mad. It's like, oh man, can we just be adults? If you're gonna dish it, take it. Yeah. Whew. Why does this work me up so much? Because I don't like being forced to play pretend. I don't take that from anyone. Like, I just don't. I don't accept that from anyone. Why would I suddenly just be okay with like putting my brain like turning off my logical capacity to entertain stupidity? It doesn't make sense. Whew. Yeah, Thomas was saying, no way all conspiracies are valid. Half of them contradict each other. Aside from the fact that just because I've heard this said a million times, just because all conspiracies aren't true doesn't mean some conspiracies aren't true. Yeah, that's true. I know. We could say a lot of truisms. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not after you, right? Like, we could say all of these things. There are actual conspiracies out there, but like the difference being, people who are seriously looking into an actual conspiracy are doing real research and will have to prove it. That's the thing. You have to prove it, because until it's proven, it's going to sound insane. And if you're not comfortable with that, then I'm sorry, you probably shouldn't be the one doing quote unquote the research. Frank was saying, just because I'm right doesn't mean you're not wrong. But it's just like the logical loops that people will justify an unfounded belief is just, it's astounding to me. It's astounding. And not just like any unfounded belief, because again, sure, believe in unicorns, believe whatever you want. I don't care. But when it starts hurting other people, why would I be like Mr. Tolerance? I don't understand that. When you're hurting other human beings, it's like, no, it's actually dangerous to just be like, oh yeah, spew your crazy theory that could get people killed or hurt. No, I'm not gonna, yeah, I'm not cool with that. Speaking of, I'm working on Victorian comics. Spicy Kremble. I'm working on a Victorian historical fiction comic. Here's a good one. I've heard this from conspiratorial minded people as well, where they're like, well, Galileo, everybody thought he was crazy when he pointed out that like the sun wasn't the center of the universe. So yeah, and they put him to death. Like the new thinkers are always met with resistance. Yeah, you're not Galileo, okay? The people I'm talking about are not freaking Galileo here, okay? They're not like some of the most brilliant scientists who ever lived. This is not the case of these scenarios. These are people with access to like a blog and like some internet memes that they took way too seriously. That's the thing. Thomas was saying, I love a good conspiracy theory, though. They are a lot of fun. I like hearing them, yes. And I kind of don't even mind entertaining and talking to somebody who believes it. It's the insistence of people who are bought in and dug in to like be treated with the utmost respect, as if what they're saying is worthy of respect. And it kind of reminds me of like an old statement of, dude, no, respect is earned. It's not just demanded. You don't just go, you respect me. It's like, no, you respect someone because they're making a valid point, right? Like, you can't just command respect. Like, it's earned, right? And like, why would I respect somebody who's making the claim the earth is flat? Why should I respect that person? I mean, I'll respect their humanity, but like, I'm not going to respect your cockamamie idea. Why would I? It's earned, right? Like, will I tolerate it? Sure. Can you believe it in the privacy of your own home? Sure. But, yeah, like, I'm not going to be sitting back when somebody's, it's like the fallacy of the teacup or whatever, right? If somebody says there's like a teacup like orbiting, a planet in outer space, it's not on me to get like a satellite and go prove them wrong. It's on them to provide me information where they got that wacky idea about a teacup orbiting a planet. And it's so weird to me, like the amount of skepticism that I see people use when it comes to, you know, proving a conspiracy, where they'll be like, yeah, but why would they say that? Think about who profits from this. And yet they never consider like who profits from this theory. Like, have you guys ever thought? I'm not saying you, but I'm saying like the people who buy into this stuff. Have they ever thought about that? Like, who profits? Like, have they seen who's profiting off these wacky conspiracy theories? There's a whole industry. You know, I could sell a bunch of nutraceuticals to you if you believe a conspiracy. I could be like, well, you need to just like all medicine is bunk. You need to just take this like brain medication because it'll make you think better. Because you should believe me because all scientists are lying. And the fact that it's not FDA approved, you should just ignore that because it totally works, even though there's no science behind it. Trust me, I use it every day. Oh, man. Okay, we're going to play a trailer. And we're going to finish this page. Potentially before I leave for dinner. Yeah, Chris was saying Alex Jones profits pretty well. Yeah, he does. He makes a ton of money. He's a millionaire, a multimillionaire. And you think he's like the little guy fighting the big guy and not realizing he's the big guy disseminating propaganda for you to buy his stuff. Like, that's the thing. Most of these guys are doing that. Yeah, Frank said, you still believe in trailers? Woke. Yeah, I mean, anyhow. I'm I'm just saying it's one of those weird things of like, I'm calling it out because it's hard for me to sit in a room, even among friends, and be like, yeah, let's all be tolerant. No, I'm not going to be tolerant of nonsense. Like, I will be tolerant to the extent of I will hear you out. But just because I'm going to hear you out on your wacky opinion is not going to mean that I suddenly change my mind and go, oh my gosh, wow, that's a really good point. I might entertain the thought for 5 seconds, but that doesn't mean I'm going to endorse it. Like, part of cohabitation and tolerance isn't agreement, right? It's more just allowing a platform. So sure, have a platform, say whatever you want, but don't be surprised if I call it stupid, because it might be. And also, me calling it stupid is not violence. It's not shutting you down. It's just me expressing my opinion that it's kind of dumb. Okay, let's watch a trailer. We might have to do another stream a little later because it is getting towards dinner time. But we'll see how that goes. So I do want to, at least at minimum, I want to finish the panel I'm working on right now. We've gotten through a lot on this stream, though. I appreciate it. I appreciate those of you who are watching this. Even if you believe in things I don't agree with, I still appreciate you guys. I hope we're all mature enough to where you wouldn't have to fully agree with somebody to, buy a comic book. But maybe some of us are that fragile. Maybe, like, I don't do that before I buy comics, but maybe some of us are so fragile that, like, before I buy a comic, I need to look at what are the politics of this person writing this thing? What are their theories? What do they think about science? I need to look behind all of this before I can buy a product that has nothing to do with any of this. Okay, here is the trailer. This is Philip Chandler endorsing Jacob's Apartment. Spicy Kremble stream is back.
Hi, my name is Phil Chandler. I'm a freelance artist, illustrator, and cartoonist. Today, though, however, I want to tell you about a graphic novel I picked up recently called Jacob's Apartment. This book was both written and beautifully illustrated by Joshua Kemble. It is the story of a doomed romance that causes the main character to question his beliefs and his faith, while he's also going through other tragedies in his life. Every page has been illustrated by hand and digitally colored with painstaking detail. It is an emotional story that causes you to think and even question things in your own life. And while the story is a tragedy, it is one that I was completely entertained by and I highly recommend. You can currently find this on Amazon or even check in with your local bookstore and see if you can order it. And while you're at it, you can also check out my Instagram at Phil Chandler Arts and also my YouTube channel by the same name, Phil Chandler Arts. And go buy Jacob's Apartment.
Look, Thomas was saying, I enjoy the conspiracy theorists that present their evidence but are still willing to point out problems with it. Yeah, for sure. And I want to be clear that I'm not saying that it's wrong for somebody to maybe even entertain or believe a conspiracy theory. I'm not trying to claim that. I'm just saying that, like, if something's dangerous, like, if somebody has a theory that, this is an old, like, lack of absolute truth kind of disproof that the right used to use all the time. If somebody literally doesn't believe in gravity to the point where they think they're gonna fly when they jump off a cliff, I'm not going to be like, well, you do you. Like, no, I kind of don't want people just randomly jumping off cliffs thinking they can fly. I think there's a point where it's okay to say that's kind of dangerous what you're talking about. There's a point where you can actually say that. If somebody thinks it's moral to go around, like, just shooting people, like, just haphazardly, I think it's okay to actually say, like, nah, that's kind of not that, like, no, no, that's not okay. Like there is a right and wrong, you know? But the one thing I will say is I do appreciate people more who I disagree with but are good faith about it. Like to me, a good faith person, let's say like somebody listening right now who might buy into a conspiracy. I think if they're fully good faith, they can handle a little back and forth, right? They can handle some pushback. That's what I'm getting at. It's like I think when people are sincere, they can handle pushback. You know, I'm sincere in my belief in Christianity and I can handle pushback and I can definitely point out a lot of problems logically with what I believe. It's okay. I'm not offended. I can have that conversation. Um I think that's important. I think it's weird when you start being so bad faith that if somebody points out like a problem, like let's say as a Christian somebody brings up like Old Testament stuff where like you know, God literally tells Israel to like kill women and children. And I just ignore that as like problematic, as if it isn't something that's like plagued theologians for years. That would be the worst, the most bad faith conversation I could have with somebody who disagrees with me, right? If I'm just like, well, that's what I believe and I'm so offended. It's like, no, no, it's okay for somebody who disagrees with me to kind of go, yeah, that's kind of tough. Like, you know, it would be bad faith if they think that, you know, if they make like assertions from that, but like being a Christian, I should expect that that's going to be something people talk about because it's a hard one. And I'm not going to be like bad faith about it and pretend I have that all worked out because I don't, you know? I think that's important. Uh, but I do think that being a skeptic is really important. I don't think like belief is bad, but I think being skeptical, being able to step outside of your bubble and like think for a little bit, you know, think about the holes in your logic. It's so important. Gary said, when I was young, I learned to be skeptical of things I want to believe. That's a trap I feel lots of conspiracy folk fall into. They find the theories really entertaining and that clouds them. That's the thing. You can't let it cloud your judgment. And the thing is, it usually, I think my suspicion about it is it starts off as entertaining because it is entertaining. Like, I'll admit, you know, I've totally listened to Alex Jones. Um, I don't believe a word that guy says, but I've listened to him because I'll tell you, you know, anybody on the left who's going to pretend that Alex Jones isn't like super entertaining is insane. It's wildly entertaining, you know. It's great content. It's not great content like what it's saying, but it's great content like it's really wild and interesting and he's very charismatic and very funny. And people who would deny that are just like, I think, putting their head in the sand. I think that's half the appeal of Alex Jones. He's fun to listen to. It's kind of fun to think some of those things, you know, like it'd be fun to like kind of entertain some of those wacky ideas. It's, you know, I think we can't just deny that like there's some entertainment for sure. So I think it tends to like, this is my suspicion about it. I think it tends to start as just like a subtle fascination and then people just allow their mind to kind of go, well, what if, and then they stop being skeptical and they start investing some actual currency into it, whether it's like emotional currency or financial currency. There's some kind of investment, and then it's like you get so deep in, you know, that like to admit that you're wrong after you've started getting so bought in that you've made some pretty wild claims, I think it just breaks the mind to have to acknowledge like if it's not like 100%, even if it's something you really believe, I think it's hard for people to be comfortable with saying what they believe isn't like bulletproof, you know? And that's where it starts getting bad faith, where you just kind of block out anything that doesn't make you feel good, anything that is counter to what you know, uh, have convinced yourself of, you know? And again, like, I don't think people who believe this stuff are bad people. I just think that like I'm not going to be you can't demand that somebody accept nonsense. Like, you just can't. You can't demand that I'm going to like just because we can have that conversation doesn't mean it's equally weighted, you know? And it also doesn't mean I'm going to equally weight it with how much seriousness I treat the subject, because depending on the absurdity of the claim, you know, that's going to affect like how much I personally bring to it, you know? And we all do that. Like even conspiracy theorists do this, you know? If I walk around saying I'm Albert Einstein or something, reincarnated, I think that like a lot of conspiracy theorists would be like, well, okay, that's a crazy claim, you know? And they'd want to see some facts. I think somebody would be absolutely insane to be like, yeah, you could be Albert Einstein. That's cool. I mean, it's different if I'm like aware I'm not Albert Einstein. I'm just asking people like, hey, I'm a big fan of Albert Einstein. Could you call me Albert? Sure. I mean, like, I'd be cool with that. I don't know, you know? But you know, there's a level of seriousness that you can't expect with some claims, you know. There is a fact of the matter. There is a fact of the matter, you know. It might be hard philosophically to start getting into absolute truth, but it's one of those things of like, unless we want to devolve into nihilism where none of us can believe anything, you know, and our own existence is in question, our own thoughts are in question. I think it's okay for us to accept that there are some things that are actually true and we can ascertain whether they are true or not. But like a big part of it is to know we can be misled, you know, like Gary was saying, you know, it's like it's so important to realize like I could be 100% wrong, you know, I could be fully convinced of something that is 100% wrong. That is a complete possibility. There have been way smarter minds than mine in the past that have been 100% convinced of something that was complete nonsense. You know, I mentioned the Hale Bopp comet people, and it's like, dude, I don't doubt their conviction. You know, they were pretty convicted. I mean, they literally took their own lives based on their conviction. You know, I don't doubt their conviction. So there's a bunch of human beings, you know, who were convicted of something that was really wrong, really dangerous, and really absurd, you know, but they had convinced themselves. So I'm like, okay, I see people do that. Do I see myself as like above other people? No. So I'm fully aware I could be wrong. That's a huge part of it, you know? But I have to admit, you know, I'm not going to say conspiracy theories aren't fun to hear, you know? They're totally fun to hear. All right, so we are now levitating a woman in a magic show in Victorian England in my comic. And I'm getting further on the pages. I'm actually really excited about getting closer. But if you want to make wild claims like In-N-Out Burger is not the best hamburger chain, better come with some equipment there. Because now you're going against science, okay? No, I'm just kidding. All right. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this spicy stream. If you haven't yet, you know, hey, I'm putting energy into this stuff. I think it's entertaining. Even if it's pissing you off, you got to admit it's entertaining. If you can, take a minute to thumbs up this channel. Click that like button. You can even click that dislike button. That's okay. But I'd prefer a like. Let's see here. We're gonna do. Yeah, I'm trying to kind of dissect why did it bug me so much. And I think it's like, I think it's okay. Like, I understand why somebody would take the kind of like to each their own, you know, let bygones be bygones kind of opinion of things. And I think in general, that's probably like a really good way to conduct your life, right? Where, you know, judge not lest you be judged, that kind of thing. You know, I think that's a pretty good policy. But I guess like what bugs me about it is when did like disagreeing, I'm totally rambling here, but when did disagreeing with someone become like a personal insult or attack? Like, it's very bizarre to me. Like, when did me calling an idea that someone has stupid turn into me calling them stupid? You know, I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I feel like maybe this is just me being fictional or something, but it's like I feel like there was a time where you could actually think what someone's saying is stupid, but still value the person, right? Um, Someone could literally be the smartest person in the world and have dumb ideas. Um, you know what's interesting? Okay, so like let's take somebody like Elon Musk. Elon Musk is a genius. Like, I don't think he's a dumb person, but he said some dumb things and he has some really dumb ideas. Both can be true. You know, it's like I could call something Elon Musk says dumb without meaning that he himself is dumb. Does that make sense? Yeah, Chris was saying I'm open to being convinced, but I'm going to stick with my In-N-Out. Yeah, In-N-Out is I mean, yeah, I was going to say if anybody who listens to this stream is ever in California, you know, and you want to buy me a better burger, you know, I'm not going to protest against the idea of experimenting with other potential better burgers. Um, you know, especially if they're free hamburgers. Basically, this whole thing's a scam for me to get free delicious hamburgers from you guys. Like, if you're ever at a comic convention that I'm at and you want to buy me a better hamburger, I'm not going to protest that, you know. I'm open to having my mind changed. So, we're gonna at least finish this magician before we have to like head out and have dinner. I'm guessing you guys are probably pretty hungry too. Hopefully you guys are working on projects. What's everybody working on? Hopefully whatever you're working on tastes better with spice. That's right. Spicy stream. Hold on, I have a little sound drop for this. I have a Jim Lujan provided.
Let's get ready to crumble. Let's get ready to crumble.
Oh wait, it's on loop now. Anyhow, yeah. Frank said Elon is a genius, but renaming Twitter X. I'm not a Twitter fan, but I don't think X is the best name. I'm in agreement. You know, and I could be proven wrong. Maybe it's like the most genius thing ever done, but yeah, like that's my point. It's like, you know, you can disagree with someone's idea and it could not mean that they're like horrible people. And that's where I think like discourse is good and disagreement is good and conversations are good. But like, you know, just because I don't think you're a bad person doesn't mean I don't think you could entertain bad ideas, you know? That's my point. Cuz I've had dumb ideas, you know? I've been wrong in the past, you know? And I am an idiot. So, you know, what are you going to do? Okay. What do we got here? Spicy stream going for a little bit longer. Gary said, I'm not convinced Elon is a genius. He just buys companies. He's not writing code or building rockets or whatever else. He's just got Batman's superpower. He's rich. Yeah, and I mean, you know, I think he is pretty visionary with some of the things he buys. And I do think he's a bit of an engineer. So like there's that. But you're right. Like a lot of it is genius in business. But still, I could disagree with somebody, you know, and think they were, you know, not stupid, even though their idea is stupid. Unless that person thinks In-N-Out Burger is not the best hamburger, because in that case, I don't know. I think that person might actually be stupid. Boom! Shots fired. Spicy stream. Okay, guys, our food is here. We're gonna call it the end of the stream. All right, guys, have a good night. I will see you I'll probably be live streaming in like a couple hours to finish up this page. Thanks for hanging out with me while I do art. Thanks for hanging out with me during a spicy stream. I had a lot to say. I had a lot on my chest. I'm happy with how this page is coming out. I might end up changing the color of the cups. I don't know if that's working. So that might have to change. But yeah, everything in magenta is not done. We got some progress done. I might see you guys later. I appreciate it. If you haven't yet, hit that like button, especially if you like these spicy streams. And make sure you're subscribed and you've hit that bell so there's notification. And I'll be streaming again tonight. So make sure you've hit that bell because that'll give you notifications when we're about to go live. All right, guys, have a great day on your art journey, you know, and I will see you guys on the next live stream. Goodbye.